And like you said, my identity can kind of get hijacked by a couple companies that kind of dominate search. It's funny, I had Candace Owens on last week and she mentioned DuckDuckGo. I never had actually heard of that search engine. And she was saying I was actually Googling how many black people in the world, and I got all of these articles about how coronavirus was hurting black people more and all this stuff. And she's like, I was just trying to get this, but I was served up this whole other agenda of information. And I think, like you said, we forget how much of our human experience is digital, and then it's actually controlled by a few.
Yeah, and so that's a phenomenal point. And so we have to ask ourselves the question also about intellectual property. So for example, I've been on Twitter. I was one of the first users of Twitter, percentage-wise, not in aggregate, but I started using Twitter in 2011. Okay, so that's pretty early. I think that's fair to say, more so than most. I was a junior in high school when I first heard about Twitter. I happened to watch the Ellen DeGeneres show, of which I haven't made a habit out of that. But I was watching Ellen DeGeneres show as a junior in high school, and I remember they're talking about this new platform called Twitter. I remember exactly the class. I remember the seat I was sitting in the computer tech class, third period of school, and I started the Twitter account. And so I've poured my life and soul over 9 years into that Twitter account. I'm talking about tens of thousands of hours of my work, my productivity, my thoughts, my dreams on that Twitter account. That's not Twitter. That's me. So if Twitter decides to delete my Twitter today, which they could do, I hope they don't. I have 1.7 million Twitter followers. My Twitter followers have completely stagnated. We were gaining 10,000 Twitter followers every couple of days on Twitter. And now we've basically flatlined since the virus because we've said some things that have, essentially challenged the status quo. And so now let's say Twitter decides to ban me. I hope they don't. All of a sudden that 9 years of work goes where? There's actually precedent in property law to say that you as an individual, when you pour yourself into creating something that is yourselves, you should have the rights to that intellectual property. Why is Twitter able to just delete all the unique thoughts and all the unique takes and all the unique videos, all the unique commentary that I put on their platform over the last 9 years? Now they could say, well, that's our platform. You voluntarily consented to it. That's actually not that cut and dry and simple. For example, first of all, they monetized my speech. They make money off of me. Okay. And they did not pay me a royalty. So there's an argument there. But also, if I own 10,000 acres of land in rural Montana, and someone actually comes onto my piece of property and builds a cabin, over a period of time, if I don't challenge them and I just let them do that, there's actually, it's similar to squatters' rights, that after a period of time, the court will say, no, that's their cabin now. They built it. They poured into it. That's theirs because you didn't challenge them. And so that might be a little bit too kind of distant in the legal community to actually have any merit because of the power of Twitter's, access to legal expertise. But I'll tell you, there's something to that because I have, for example, I'll get over 130,000 retweets on a single day, 130,000 on a single day. That's not insignificant. That's what some people will get over the course of their entire Twitter existence. I will reach about 100 million people on Twitter a day. Twitter needs people like me. I'm a content creator. And now I'm not going to play victim. I benefit from it too. Make no mistake. I'm not one of those people that wants to just completely bite the hand that's feeding me. I have benefited from these platforms. But at some point, they have to treat me not as just someone that is the complete and total enemy, but as someone that is actually someone who's feeding them what they need. They need thousands of Charlie Kirks to perform on their platform to be able to have them to be a monetized company and be the multi-billion-dollar company that they are.
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking a lot about. I had a conversation with YouTube 12 days ago, and honestly, it was after we had a strike, which meant for 7 days we were not allowed to upload or go live, and the reps basically said, you make one small move and you're gone. As in, we won't even give you another strike, you'll just be off. And I've been on there 9 years, 8,000 videos, including 5 documentary films, 250 million views, another 250 million views on YouTube from my content that people have ripped. My whole life is on there. I mean, I told them, I got emotional on the call. It's like, it's my life. And I literally meet people on the streets and our content has literally saved their life. I didn't believe it at first, but they're like, I was on the brink of suicide. I was in divorce. I was addicted to drugs. And like, I saw one of your guests and they said the right thing at the right time. So I know what you mean. It's this creator, but it's just more than that. It's more than just some videos as well. And yet they were ready to do that because I published some videos that violated their community policy, which is a private company they say they can have. I argued that it was so subjective that I was literally living in terror. That's what I said, I feel like I'm being terrorized because I don't know when you're going to come and find a video from 3 years ago and tell me it's hate speech. One of the guys was a big fan of Priyanka Chopra. She's a famous Bollywood actress. And I was talking on the phone. He said, I love your interview with Priyanka. I said, what if in minute 43 she says, I hate Hollywood directors? Like, you could come back tomorrow and say, I just violated community and now I've been deplatformed. I said, this is what I live in. And as a creator, it doesn't feel right. And yet they go back to this private company thing, which I agree, it doesn't hold water on a lot of ways.
Let me build that out, the private company thing. And so let's just look from a public perception standpoint. Let's take an American company that people know that it's owned by conservatives, Home Depot. So Home Depot is owned by a couple, founded by a couple conservatives. What if Home Depot said, if you wear a Biden hat or a Democrat hat, you're not allowed to shop at Home Depot? How do you think people would react to that? Now, they'd have a right to do it. It's a private company, but do you think that would be tolerated? I mean, so let's use another example. Let's use American Airlines. Let's say if American Airlines said that if you open up your app and you read the Huffington Post, or if you have a newspaper that is the New York Times, you're not allowed to board American Airlines planes. Do you think that would stand up in a court of law? Be interesting. I don't think so. And I don't think the public pressure would apply. So why is it that all of a sudden that these tech companies are getting away with censoring us? And so there's a couple ways that this is going to happen. I'm going to tell you the bad way that this could happen. The bad way is if the left gets control of this and they want to turn this into a public utility where they deem what is fair and not. That is worse than what's even happening now. Let me just put a danger out there. Elizabeth Warren wants to nationalize these companies, and so does Bernie Sanders, because it'll be 10 times worse than what's happening now. They'll have some sort of nonsense social justice warrior, college professor board of anti-American, anti-Western people that will not even give you 3 strikes. They'll be worse than the tyrants that are running these companies right now. Now, what I think that might be actually more interesting is to get the Department of Justice involved under AG Barr and say, is platform access a civil right? And I think you could make that argument. And I'm not totally 100% behind this idea because I see some traps in it, but I'm very open to it. Do you have a civil right to be able to use the place where all public discussion is happening? So, for example, you're able to petition your government and you're able to get the right to say whatever you want outside of the U.S. Capitol or the Supreme Court. You're able to fill out that form. And even if you're the worst aspects of society, you're able to get that form of petition. Okay. Why can't you do that on YouTube? You could make an argument that you're really not going to have as much of an influence outside of the Capitol to influence and have the First Amendment rights in our Constitution as you are able to have actually access to where 92% of all search results are on YouTube. That is by and far away, not even close to the number 1 video provider on the planet. Facebook is probably second or third. So why wouldn't we be able to have that constitutional right? When people say, well, they're not bound by the First Amendment. But again, there's plenty of private companies that would not be able to discriminate based on viewpoint. They just wouldn't. I want you to imagine right now if Chipotle or McDonald's said that Democrats are not able to come and shop at, not able to purchase product at our store. That would not hold up. They'd say that's anti-discrimination. That's against discrimination. They would use all sorts of different precedent. Well, why are these tech companies immune to that? And so then, of course, there's the Section 230 to Communications Decency Act. I wrote a piece for the Washington Post, of all places, that published this. Kudos to them for actually publishing it, and demerits to them for everything they've done since. But I'll tell you that, look, it provides immunity from liability for them, for providers and users. There's something to that. And I've heard very thoughtful rebuttal to it. They say, oh, Charlie, that's not enough. But this is headed in a very, very, very dangerous direction where you have these tech companies that are acting like Stalinists, that they are going to stamp out opinion that they don't like. And I want to differentiate the tech companies again. Twitter and Google have just been awful. Facebook has some very troubling trends, but I'll give you an example of Facebook. Now, whether or not this will continue or not, I don't know. They censored one of my posts last week through one of their very puzzling fact-checking funding enterprises through Reuters. They said, this is untrue. It was so bad. I contacted Facebook and I said, please look into this. This is Reuters doing activist journalism. Within 12 hours, Facebook removed the censor. Good for them. Now, it took a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. I can't get a human being to respond to me at Twitter. And so we had one of our individuals, ALX, that works for us at Turning Point USA. His name's Alex LaRusso, 24-year-old kid, one of the nicest people you ever meet in your entire life, 100,000 followers on Twitter, followed by the president, retweeted by the president, and Twitter just decided to disappear him similar to Wuhan scientist. Just, we're going to get rid of him. And his whole digital identity is gone. Years of work. I appealed. I reached out directly to Jack. And I don't know what's going on there. Do they just want to become a pseudo-Stalinist tech company? Is that their new approach, or do they want to represent our country? Or not, I shouldn't even represent our country, just represent all viewpoints of our country, I think is a more proper way to say it. So look, this is one of the biggest issues of our time. This is something that if we fail to address it and recognize it, we are going to have a subset of private companies that have more power than our government. Therefore, they run our country. And it's fair to say that most people at these tech companies hate everything we stand for. They hate free expression. They're postmodernists, anti-American, anti-Western, anti-God believing individuals that are on an activist-driven campaign to stamp out people that they disagree with.